MacKenzie. I'm here to talk you through the X-Axis Honda CBX750. It was a project that I took on about a year ago. I'd made a couple of bikes before that, just because I needed something to do after finishing motocross. So I thought like the perfect transition was to come off dirt, save myself a load of washing and buy myself like a nice cafe racer. So the first one I built was like a CX500 in Australia. When I moved home, I hooked up with some of my friends, namely the Amor brothers, and we started creating something that was a little bit different. I was first inspired to get this model after doing the CB750. We just needed an upgrade, and the CBX was the next choice. However, it needed a lot more work than the CB750. The CB750 was quite an easy build, like a lot of builders were doing that, and I'd taken inspiration from others. But after I'd learnt the basics with my friends, we just decided that we needed something that was a little bit more racy, because at the end of it we had our racing DNA. So the first thing we had to do on the CBX750 was to cut the rear subframe completely off. It was useless and terribly designed. I'm not sure back in 1984 who was designing the rear ends of Hondas, but it seriously feels like it was a different department compared to the front engine department. So with it being so long and saggy, it was quite low. We just chopped the whole thing off and fabricated it out of 22mm pipework, and that's changed the complete look of the bike. This is probably the most important upgrade aesthetically. So I had some professional friends help me out. You know, I'd never sort of welded or anything before, but I ended up buying a welder and a pipe bender, and we got to work. I hooked up with one of my old friends that I'd met, Ben Rose. He was a shit hot welder, so he had done some really nice pipes on the CX500 that's on our website. So we kind of learned together. I was the sort of design front and he was the weld man, but at the end of it, we came up with a really beautiful subframe, and you know, we got all the heights perfect, we got all the bends perfect. I was trying to make it as minimalistic as possible, but still be able to show the lines of the frame. Like everything about the CBX750 is just cut down, chopped up, and racy. You know, so that the amount of weight that we must have saved is incredible. After the subframe was built, like one of my favorite parts is to design the rear end of the bike, the seat and the tail fin. Now, originally I was going to try and do, you know, a seat cowl like all the other cafe racers, but I'd done a few of them already, and I was trying to think of something different. But with any design, or like as soon as you start to do the practical of it, it always sort of molds and morphs into something different. So in the end, like I wanted to have space for, you know, maybe a passenger if she had a tiny ass, you know. So I started to just play around with some sheet metal because down in London, an old friend of mine who has an exhaust pipe company, he used to sponsor me when I was racing motocross, DEP. He lets me just run loose in the workshop sometimes. So I just started layering fins, and I started molding it and shaping it, and I started to get that feel from looking at Ferrari Testarossa rear end, you know, like the grills over the lights. So that was kind of like this started to inspire me a little bit, but in the end it was actually just, it morphed into my own design, and I was really happy with it. We have the LED strip which has the indicators and the brake light, and it's all super neatly packed in there, and you know, all the contours and that just perfectly shaped the tank. So I was quite happy with how this turned out. You know, I custom made the seat, it's all waterproof foam under there, and then the upholstery, you know, just the red thread detail, it just turned into something nice. You know, it wasn't like I had a diagram or a sketch that I was really working off. I was literally just, you know, doing what came natural and what fitted the bike. So that's probably one of the most stunning parts of the bike, is just the way that the back end's been wrapped into the same shape as the tank. You know what I mean? Like it's quite a cool look, and like I said, whoever got all the shapes of the front fairing on the CBX84 model didn't communicate with the rear end. Like it was like a square plastic looking. You'll see on the website the original photos. So in the end, I cut these down to the bare minimal. I shaped them in. I tried to get the cuts in line with the forks and the angles, and basically just covered up a big hole that was in the tank. But I think with the original style of paintwork from the CBX, I wanted people to remember that this is still an 84 CBX750. So the original paintwork was the two black lines and the red. So I've always wanted to spray a Honda, or especially one of my custom builds, red, and this was the first one that I managed to do it. So I was happy with that. And like I said, that the front end of this bike just started to make sense. Like after we had finished with the back, things started to just fall into place. We had the custom machine stem to mount the CBR600 front forks and front end, which, you know, took a bit of measuring and stuff, and it was, you know, we had to go get it custom made, but that's in there now and everything's perfectly flush. And I mean, handling wise, it's a massive upgrade from the original, quite long, almost scrambler type forks. You know, they were just massive. This then led us into the front wheel. Like, part of the designs that I've been doing on these bikes is to keep the original wheels, tank, and swinging arms. You know, I always feel like the manufacturers, when they put a bike out, they must have got a lot right, you know, and a lot of testing. So I don't ever really want to stray too far from it. But the front wheel was a massive challenge because we had to machine it down, we had to make spacers, and we had to fit the front brakes so they perfectly line up with the calipers of the CBR600. So there was a lot of work went into the front wheel, and but I just like that it keeps the original look of the bike. It's the Honda CBX750, and I want people to know that it is. And I tried to keep it as in line with that style as I could, but just to upgrade the performance. So with the 16-inch front wheel, it was super difficult to find tires, and these are the only tires I can find to get on this bike. But they're Metzler's. They're a set. I know they've got different treads and stuff. I really wanted to find a same tread for the rear wheel. I think that would look smart as. But this is what it came with. And to be fair, it looks a bit badass. I don't mind it. You know, it's a street bike. It can go anywhere. We're not going track racing. We're not going dirt track racing. Like, this thing will race around the streets and up the mountains as quick as you want it. So I don't mind the tires. I'm still getting used to the asphalt anyway. You know, I'm still like learning where that grip is. I've been racing motocross too long, so it's just nice to sort of move away from the motocross and have something sick to ride. You know what I mean? I roll it out of the garage on a nice day and I take it for a blast, and it does just tick all my boxes. So that's the aesthetic design. There's a lot of work went into the engine. The engine was completely stripped down to the casings. We've had new shells, new pistons, new clutch, new spark plugs, like pretty much a complete rebuild of a 1984 CBX750 by our mechanic Guy Amor. He done a real good job, and he helped me build the bike. You know, we've been sharing the workshop, and all of our ideas have went into this bike, and his engine work is, you know, as you see today, all the painting, all the bolts, everything was finished off to the highest quality. And I always feel confident when guys worked on an engine and put it in the bikes, because, you know, they've done the TT test, and he was a mechanic for Keith Amor on the TT days. So it's nice to have grown up around those guys, and they've helped me a lot to get it where it was. But I can safely say, like, the engine and the performance is one of the biggest selling points on this bike. It's like tried and tested. I've been out on it, Keith's been out on it, and we've really got it dialed into where it's a performance retro bike, you know. The pipes were made by DEP. DEP pipes are a long-term sponsor of mine, even from when I was like 8 years old. So, you know, being able to have the full use of a factory that make exhaust pipes for all the modern and vintage motocross bikes is a bit cheating. But, you know what I mean, like, I raced that long, I got to know a few people, you know. And yeah, Paul Knott down there, he does a bit of speedway. He sculpted these pipes. And we had a little bit of an issue on the test ride. The edges of the cans were just slightly scuffing on the corners, so we swept it up and we got them like proper up and out the way now. So it sounds pretty cool, and I just love the tight fit. I like how everything's, you know, parallel with the frame, the bends, you know, everything's symmetrical. They've done a really great job. So the suspension, rear suspension, we just upgraded. There was a horrible air shock on here, like the original CBX air shock, but it was so heavy and disgusting that I ended up getting a YSS one, which came through the post and fitted straight on. So the suspension upgrade has been one of the best points on this bike. I couldn't imagine riding it with that clumpy air shock. So it was quite difficult to get the final design for the headlights. It was one of those things that, you know, I knew I had to get it right. It always makes the bike. I was seeing a lot of examples online of some really cool single headlights, and I was almost spoiled for choice, but It's a CBX750 84, and it comes with twin headlights. So I even tried looking for square headlights online, maybe off of like a 4x4 or something, like the spotlights. I even ordered a few, but none of them were right. They were just plasticky and they just looked tacky. So in the end, guy said to me, he's like, look, you've got to use the originals, man. They're a piece. And after we took them all apart and we reconditioned them and cut all the tabs off and stuff, we realized actually how cool they are. You know, it's durable Honda original glass. They're big, you know what I mean? They're original. They were on the bike when it started, so it would almost be criminal to replace them. So we started chopping down everything. We got them, you know, sitting nicely, adjustable, but they were like sticking a little bit too far out. Like the whole thing about this bike is to get it millimeter perfect. So we pushed them in as far as we could. We modified this bracket to screw into the throttle barrel. Like, we were just making things up as we go, but that's part of the fun in it. You know, like I enjoy these little tasks where I have to make something fit, and so does Guy. So we've got them like locked on here with some black Jubilee clips with a nice rubber seal, adjustable springs. You know what I mean? They're still in perfect working order, and you can adjust the levels of them. It does make the bike, you know, everyone that sort of saw it online and remembers what a CBX750 looks like from 1984, I think will appreciate the twin optics, you know. And it's just something a little bit different. There was too many just single headlights, and although they look trick, these just were never meant to be taken off this bike, you know. So after we put the headlights on, we kind of found a little problem. We had a lot of space to cover up, and I originally had a Moto Gadget digital display on, but we needed to fill this gap. And in the end, like 2 Daytona gauges just perfectly filled everything up, and it gives it that classic look as well. You know, it's racy, and they were the only choice. Everything I found online, those were the ones I wanted to use. We used the Moto Gadget buttons. Everything's super minimal. We've got engine start, indicator, horn indicator, and headlights. So it's as simple as you get. It's easy to use. Levers, I think we're off a Ducati Monster or something, but they work perfect. Just with our sort of flow of design, we went minimal. We wanted to show everyone like the workings, all the wiring. You know, like the wiring's been probably one of the most special parts of this build as well. Just with how precise it was done, and everything's measured and tight. So we wanted to show like all the wiring, all the plugs on the back of the lights. You know, we wanted people to actually see our work because it's a full factory like race loom, the same as you would build for a TT bike. We did a large modification to the engine with the oil cooler. The oil cooler was actually like built into the big frame that held the lights and the fairing. We positioned it where it belongs. You know, like there was so many tubes and pipes leading up to have the oil cooler at the very front of the bike on the original design, and we literally just got rid of all of it. We made our own factory hoses that run all the way down to the engine, and we modified the plugs to the base of the engine. But in the end, it was the only place it could go, and I think it looks really cool. We sprayed a little Honda in there and just kept the red theme. So yeah, the wiring, if we go back to the dash, I mean, you'd have to look really hard to see the wiring. We've left it open deliberately so you can see it, but everything's running through the bars, original CBR600 bars as well. Everything goes nicely down to the fuel tank, and Guy's work here has just been super tidy. We used the M Gadget, the Moto Gadget M unit, and then all the connectors we redid, heat shrunk, soldered, made everything as tight and just as accessible as possible for cleaning, for repair, anything that would go wrong. It's just all neatly under the seat. One of the other modifications was the rear sets. The old rear sets were massive, clunky, chunky. They came right up. The subframe was actually like coming in line with there, so everything was real flat, real low. It looked like it just clapped out on the back. So these rear sets are from an RC30 or fit an RC30. I like the look of them. You know, they're super minimal, like the style, and the mufflers hold on quite nice. Everything's like super tight and compact, which is what I was going for. You know, I don't like things that hang off too much. So made some little custom filters. We used the original manifolds just because that's the original, you know, engineering of the bike. They're strong, chunky rubber. It draws the air in perfect to the carbs, so the performance is where it should be. And you know, a bit of branding just because I was getting tricky in the garage. little custom ones. I thought the square theme works quite well with the lights. To finish off the rear, I found some nice mesh, and you know, I didn't want people seeing up and in, so when I seen this in the shop, I was like, you know what, that's going to be perfect. I just cut and shaped it, put some rubber grommets in, and that was it. That's finished it off. So the bike's now up for sale. It's been a long time coming, and it's going to be hard to let go, but you know, that's the business I'm in. I want to concentrate on getting the bikes perfectly right. You know, like I don't want to build anything off the back of a badly built bike. You know, we have our race DNA, we've got professional engineers, fabricators, we've got the whole works. So like, the concentration right now is on the bikes purely, and if you want to buy this baby, drop us an email, give us a call, message on Instagram. We're going to take this out and start now. You know, it would be cool to work with other bike builders across the world. Maybe get a space in the workshop, trade t-shirts, see a bit of the world, build a bike, race a bike, sell a bike, and go to the next one. Thanks for looking.